Amazing poor girl's surprising kiss teaches millionaire actor about love. What was revealed? Amelia's heart sank as she wiped down the last of the greasy tables at the diner, her mind racing with thoughts of the stories she longed to write, ones that would never see the light at this rate. The clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation surrounded her, a stark contrast to the silence of her unfulfilled dreams. She glanced at the clock, almost midnight. With each passing hour, the weight of economic hardship bore down on her shoulders like a heavy storm cloud. Torn between her responsibilities and her desires, she barely recognized the person she had become, numbed by the grind of survival. Just as she locked the door behind her, she stumbled into chaos. The small Nebraskan town she had called home for 24 years suddenly felt alive with excitement. Bright lights flooded the streets, and the sound of laughter echoed around the film set that had taken over what was usually the main drag. Her stomach twisted at the sight of the glamour on the other side of the rope line, a reminder of a world she would never touch, the world of wealth, of expectations, of people like Evan, the actor whose shiny face filled every magazine cover. As she reluctantly stepped closer, the film crew bustled about, tension thickening the air. To them, it was just work; to her, it was an alien landscape. Amelia felt the familiar ache in her chest, the thought creeping in that she'd never escape this cycle of waiting tables. Suddenly, as if drawn by an unseen force, Evan stepped away from the cameras, irritation flickering under his charming facade. He locked eyes with Amelia, the moment electric and impossibly heavy. "Can I get you some coffee?" she joked, throat dry. His laughter cut through the air, but it wasn't the lightheartedness she expected. "I need more than coffee," he said, suddenly serious, curiosity etched across his face. In that brief shared moment, Amelia saw past the surface the loneliness beneath his fame resonated with the struggles she carried. They talked, words spilling like rivulets. For the first time, she found comfort in someone outside her realm, someone whose pressure to maintain a perfect image stifled him. But with every word, doubt lurked behind her thoughts. Was she merely a curiosity to him, a fleeting distraction from his glossy world? Before she could dwell on her rising unease, a rhythmic pulse echoed in her mind. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Reeling from their burgeoning connection, Amelia's hope dimmed when she recalled her past, a painful whisper of the injustices she fought to forget. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sudden kiss caught her off guard, melting her hesitation. But in that moment of raw emotion came the specter of her family's struggles, resonating louder than the possibilities of a future with him. What would this unexpected bond cost her? For every shared laugh, every secret unveiled, the weight of their worlds loomed heavier. Amelia's heart raced, battling the complications of love tangled with her need for authenticity. Would she push through the barriers of their lives, or would the shadows of Evan's fame and her painful truth tear them apart before they'd even begun to explore the connection that had ignited so fiercely? The choice, she realized, was tangled in the depths of her unresolved pain and her longing for a future untouched by fear. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to inevitable heartbreak. Amelia sat on the edge of her bed, the rustle of worn sheets a constant reminder of her mundane existence. The weight of the kiss lingered on her lips, but with it came a cascade of apprehension. She found herself at a crossroads, torn between the tantalizing allure of Evan's world and the suffocating familiarity of her own. As she pulled a notebook onto her lap, she could almost hear the urgent whisper of her dreams calling from the pages, dreams of vibrant stories that held the promise of escape. Yet as her pen hesitated above the paper, doubt flooded her mind. The gap between her life and Evan's felt insurmountable. Would he even look back once the film was wrapped and he was off to his gilded life? What if the illusion shattered under the weight of reality, leaving her rejected and alone? Each stroke of her pen echoed her trepidation, grounding her in the chaos of her thoughts. She recalled the way he had looked at her, the intensity of his gaze sparking something deep within her, a flicker of confidence entwined with fear. But confidence required risk, and risk was the last luxury she could afford. Undeterred, Amelia let her pen flow, scribbling out her internal struggle, transforming doubt into words. Each paragraph served as not only an outlet but a reminder that she was still a storyteller, someone with narratives yearning to break free. With the ink still fresh, a decision began to form, one that felt as monumental as moving mountains: she would reclaim her story. No longer confined by the diner's four walls, she needed to assert herself, to define her own narrative before she became another passing thought in Evan's life. Maybe this was what she needed: an actualization of her voice. Perhaps writing could be her way out. She could channel her experiences, her truths, and weave them into something powerful. The following day, Amelia awoke with a surge of determination. Instead of heading directly to the diner, she ventured to the local park, notebook in hand. The fresh air invigorated her spirit, and the sounds of children laughing and leaves rustling felt like an invitation to breathe life into her once dormant aspirations. Sitting on a sun-drenched bench, she poured her heart and soul into her writing, devoid of the usual hesitations that had plagued her. Time melted away as she crafted a story about a young woman who dares to chase her dreams amidst the trials of life. The protagonist faced foes, both external and internal: doubt rooted in past failures, societal expectations, and the fear of the unknown. Amelia infused her own experiences into the character's journey, each line pushing her further from self-doubt and closer to empowerment. However, with inspiration came the reminder of Evan: his face, his laughter, the fleeting warmth of his kiss. Could vulnerability coalesce with ambition? Would she have the courage to tell him about her true aspirations without fear of judgment? A gnawing thought wrapped around her chest. What if she had to choose her creative drive or the connection she had awoken in Evan? Was there room for both, or would she risk her heart for pursuit of something deeper than fleeting emotion? Her pen hovered above the page, a pivotal moment pierced by uncertainty. The familiar dilemma swirled within her: could she trust love enough to flourish alongside her dreams, or would her fears pull her beneath the tides of insecurity? This realization struck her harder than any plot twist. She couldn't keep living in shadows, battling her demons alone. As Amelia closed her notebook, the sun dipped low in the sky, igniting a fire within her. She would face Evan, but more importantly, she would face herself. The dialogue between what she wanted and who she was rippled through her, intensifying with every breath. The choice was ahead, looming like a tempest waiting to unfold. Would she embrace vulnerability and pursue the connection, or would the silence of fear keep her forever on the sidelines, longing for possibilities just out of reach? And as she walked home, the question echoed louder: what sacrifices would she need to make to seize her future? Determination surged in Amelia as she stepped away from the park. The world around her pulsed with possibilities, each moment echoing the silent pledge she had made to herself. That evening, instead of losing herself in self-doubt, she settled once again with her notebook, her fingers itching to transform the thoughts and feelings swirling in her mind into something concrete. Under the dim glow of her bedside lamp, she began to structure her story more deliberately. While the protagonist had initially mirrored her own insecurities, Amelia decided now to let this character embrace risks. The young woman would confront her fears and step into uncharted territories, leaving a clear path illuminated by courage and resilience. This was the metamorphosis Amelia craved, the change she longed to embody. Words flowed freely, every sentence a testament to the exhilarating taste of empowerment. She envisioned her character slowly unraveling the threads of her own limitations and societal expectations with relentless hope. Amidst the character's journey, Amelia included moments that challenged her belief system, and she felt the weight of her own experiences breathe life into the narrative. However, with each beautiful moment she crafted in her story, doubt lurked ominously, whispering questions. Could she truly be that brave in her life? Could she step into the light Evan had offered, or would she retreat into the shadows of her fears, convinced that she could not live in both a world of love and ambition? Being authentic with Evan, expressing her aspirations and fears, felt like a mountain yet to be climbed, threatening to crumple under her weight of uncertainty. That night, sleep eluded her. The quiet of her room contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts in her mind. Sitting up in bed, she replayed the last time she had seen Evan, capturing the warmth of his smile alongside the flicker of apprehension that accompanied it. With the dawn of a new day lurking just beyond her window, Amelia clung to that memory, something potent and transformative. The next morning felt alive with potential. After a quick breakfast, she decided to step into the cafe where she worked, this time not as a passive observer but as an active participant. Each customer that trickled in felt like a character from her story. Drawn from the dusty corners of her imagination and made real through empathy and observation. Amelia found that serving coffee and lunch became more than just a routine, it was a stage where she could practice outreach and connection. With every conversation, she sought to listen and learn, immersing herself in their narratives. This newfound approach fueled her inner desire to forge genuine connections. Around midday, as she wiped down tables, she looked up and instantly spotted Evan entering. He was radiant, almost ethereal in the ordinary space. An inexplicable energy coursed through her veins as he caught her gaze, a smile breaking across his face. The moment hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and uncertainties. She felt both exhilarated and terrified, as if all the work she had done was about to crash against a wave she couldn't predict. As he approached, she took a bold breath, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. "Hey, I was wondering if you'd be free for a walk later," he said casually, yet there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. The invitation cut through her like a bolt of electricity. She had a chance to share her world, her dreams, her vulnerabilities. The risk of rejection lingered like a shadow, yet here lay an opportunity to reaffirm her narrative, to put aside fear momentarily and be true to herself. With determination surging behind her apprehension, she nodded. "Yeah, I'd love to." As the day unfurled, Amelia's excitement felt palpable, already gearing her for the conversation that loomed ahead. Would she find the courage to share her dreams with Evan? Would this be a moment of connection or a leap into the unknown, one that could redefine her history and future? The clock ticked down as the day wore on, amplifying her restless anticipation, while the question spiraled increasingly loud in her mind. What would it take to step into her power and embrace uncertainty, armed with the connection she shared with Evan? Amelia's adrenaline flowed, intertwining with her every thought as she mentally rehearsed what she wanted to convey during their walk. Each step down the cafe's worn wooden floor felt lighter than before, buoyed by a newfound purpose. Yet as the hours crept forward, she battled the gnawing apprehension tucked away in her gut, insisting that her ambitions were not merely fantasies. Finally, the end of her shift approached. She caught sight of Evan waiting outside the glass door, hands casually tucked into his jacket pockets, an unstudied ease about him that made her heart flutter. The moment their eyes met reflected uncharted territory, and intimacy formed not yet in words but in the knowing anticipation of their impending conversation. Once outside, the cool breeze brought a break from the anxious heat bubbling within her. They began walking side by side, the rhythm of their steps harmonizing in an unspoken connection. The city around them bustled, people immersed in their mundane routines, blissfully unaware of the significance of this moment. As they strolled along the park trails where she had confronted her fears only days earlier, Amelia summoned courage to speak. "I've been thinking a lot about the future." The words tumbled out, raw and earnest. Evan turned to her, a hint of intrigue lighting his eyes. "What does that look like for you?" She paused, adrenaline mingling with uncertainty. "Honestly, I want to pursue writing seriously. Not just as a hobby but as a career. I've started working on a novel." The admission felt precariously liberating, yet the weight of vulnerability felt heavier than she anticipated. His gaze softened, drawing Amelia in like a spell. "That's incredible, Amelia. What's it about?" With each detail she shared the protagonist's journey, the dreams intertwined with fears. Surges of affirmation gripped her. Evan listened intently, nodding as she unraveled the narrative that echoed her own struggles. She felt empowered, yet moments of insecurity crept back. Could she really become a writer? Staring into the brightening horizon, she questioned whether she was operating on the peripheries of her potential. Would this remain just a dream, or would her words find an audience? As they navigated the winding path, the conversation flowed between bursts of laughter and silences filled with contemplation. Evan then transitioned, breaking into a discussion about his aspirations as an actor, revealing the layers of doubt that accompanied his success. "It's funny," he confessed. "I sometimes hesitate to take on roles that scare me, even if they challenge me as an artist." She sensed an electric resonance in their shared anxieties, the unseen strands of vulnerability knitting them closer together. "Maybe that's what life's about, then," Amelia ventured carefully. "Taking those risks, daring to be brave even when it makes you uncomfortable." Her voice trembled on the edge of discovery. Evan met her gaze, the tension between them thickening. "You're right, Amelia. I need to be bolder, like in your story." He paused, contemplating her words. "But what if I fail?" The question hung in the air, wrapping around them, intricately tethered to their fears. Could they both flourish in their own pursuits? Suddenly, the prospect shifted from a crippling weight to a shared endeavor. "What if you don't?" she asked softly, leaning closer. "What if you find the success you've always dreamed of?" For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, an invisible bridge built on trust, hope, and revelation. The subtle truth of their discussions hinted at something more, something underlined by the sparking energy surrounding them. But just as her confidence was about to bloom, Amelia hesitated, teetering on the precipice of a decisive moment. Could she reveal the deep-seated longing that lurked beneath the surface? Before she could speak, Evan leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. A spark ignited in the air, awakening feelings she had kept carefully wrapped. The world around them faded as they teetered into uncharted territory, an impulsive connection hovering on the brink of something transformative. But the haunting question echoed within her: was she prepared to take that leap of faith, embracing both the uncertainty of her ambitions and the vulnerability of what it meant to pursue love? In that pregnant silence, time seemed to stretch, waiting in anticipation of her next choice. Would she hold back, or would she embrace the chance to step fully into her power? As she prepared to respond, a noise interrupted, sending her heart racing. The moment was fracturing, suspended between desire and uncertainty, leaving her facing an unknown, the next chapter of her life hanging in the balance. What would she ultimately decide? Amelia blinked, the moment ruptured by the shrill cacophony of a nearby street vendor calling out for attention. The mundane reality rushed back, but her heart remained ensnared in the magnetic tension with Evan. A sense of urgency surged through her, interlaced with confusion and desire. She had braved the moment, shared her truth, yet now it lay half-formed in the air between them. She felt the visceral pull to express more, to weave in the vulnerability that lingered just below the surface. Yet, with the street noise drowning their intentional silence, she was unsure if she could summon the courage to dive deeper into unexplored territory. "Let us keep walking," she suggested, her voice steadying. With a deliberate motion, she turned away from the moment they had so precariously balanced and resumed their stride. It was a feeble attempt to regain control, but the warmth of his presence beside her sent shivers of uncertainty up her spine. As they stepped off the path and onto a quieter lane flanked by old brick buildings, a rush of determination brightened Amelia's mind. She resolved that she would not back down now. With Evan's artistic ambitions echoing her own, she felt a shared destiny unfolding between them, a narrative of artistry and personal fulfillment. "What about you? What bold role are you going to take next?" she asked, hoping to divert the conversation while simultaneously affirming their mutual commitment to push through fear. Evan chuckled lightly, but his smile held an edge of uncertainty. "Honestly, there's a piece coming up that demands a lot from me. It has some intense scenes that require diving into darker emotions. I'm scared, but it's the kind of challenge I need." Amelia could sense that familiar echo of fear bouncing between them. "You should go for it then. It might scare you now, but once you embrace it, it could lead you to opportunities you've never imagined." He met her gaze, gratitude illuminating his expression. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple if you choose to believe in yourself," she replied, a new wave of conviction filling her voice. "We both have to step into our light, even when the shadow feels heavy. Longing surged in her chest, colliding with the reality of her dreams. Suddenly, the notion of pursuing writing felt inseparable from pursuing Evan. She wanted to embark on both journeys fully, without reservation. Choices painted with vulnerability glittered before her like stars, beckoning her to take those emotional risks, yet, a small voice whispered doubts. Wasn't she romanticizing the outcome, assuming that simply pursuing dreams would pave the way for fulfillment not just on the page, but in her own heart? Amelia? Evan's voice pulled her from the depths of her mind. Are you okay? You seem deep in thought. She inhaled, bringing herself back into the moment. I'm just grappling with everything, she confessed. Writing, pursuing a career, maybe even, this. A wave of emotion surged within her as she gestured between them. It all feels so intertwined. If I can't embrace a bold pursuit for myself, how can I expect to connect with you? The warm air between them shimmered, thick with possibilities, affirming her belief in both their journeys. Evan's expression shifted, embodying a silent recognition of their parallel paths. I understand, he said, his tone low and reflective. It's intertwined. Maybe it's the fear holding us back, our potential skirting the edges of comfort. There was truth there, resonating with Amelia's own struggles. The fear of failure or rejection permeated every decision, but with Evan beside her, it felt more manageable. Encouraged, their strides matched again, carrying them both forward. She watched the way his eyes shimmered under the faint glow of streetlights, noticing the determination beneath his uncertainty. They were both on a precipice. A step into their vulnerabilities could yield a new chapter, but as they rounded the corner, a loud commotion erupted from the crowd ahead. A familiar face flashed through the chaos, one that twisted Amelia's stomach with dread. A figure from her past, an unresolved pain that threatened to intrude. Would this confrontation be the catalyst for her to step deeper into her power, or would it scatter her newfound resolve like autumn leaves in a tempest? With her heart racing, Amelia faced the reality of both her artistic aspirations and the emotional conflict that awaited her. The clarity she had briefly held on to felt precarious now, balanced on the edge of fate. Would she be able to gracefully navigate the oncoming storm, or would she falter, pulled back into the shadows she had fought so hard to escape? Amelia's pulse quickened as they neared the crowd, an unsettling knot twisting in her stomach. That unmistakable figure loomed at the edge of the throng. It wasn't just a face from her past, it embodied her deepest fears, the long-buried emotional wounds that had shaped her into who she was today. She stopped short, uncertainty flashing through her mind. Everything okay? Evan's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, laced with genuine concern. His presence was a steady anchor amidst the rising tide of her anxieties. She shook her head, momentarily losing her voice to the looming memory of betrayal and hurt. But then she realized that this was a pivotal moment not just in her relationship with Evan, but in her own journey toward empowerment. There's someone I need to deal with, she finally managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. Evan's brow furrowed, a mix of concern and curiosity flickering across his features. Do you want me to come with you? The question hung in the air. It would be easy to take comfort in his company and melt back into an emotional cocoon, but she needed to face this alone. No, I have to do this myself, she replied, determination seeping through her doubt. It's time I confront the parts of my past that I've been running from. She took a deep breath, her heart fierce in its own rhythm, and stepped ahead into the swirling mass of bodies. The closer she got, the more acute her memories became, buzzing with all the old pain and shame that had silenced her for so long. She could feel Evan's eyes on her, a grounding presence urging her forward, steeling her resolve. Amelia pressed into the chaos until she found herself face to face with the very person she had tried so hard to forget. Sarah, her former best friend, stood there, her presence both familiar and alien, a stark reminder of trust betrayed. It felt as if the air had thickened, pressing heavily against Amelia's chest. What are you doing here? Amelia's voice sliced through the din, sharper than intended. The other woman turned, surprise flickering across her features. Amelia, Sarah started, her expression faltering as she registered the tension. I didn't expect to see you. Amelia could see the conflict in Sarah's eyes, the shame tinged with the remnants of what had once been friendship. This wasn't about rehashing the past, it was about reclaiming her voice. You don't get to just show up, Amelia retorted, her confidence beginning to swell. You left when I needed you most. Why now? Caught off guard, Sarah stammered. I know I messed up. I wasn't there for you when you needed me. Life has changed, and I just wanted to see how you were doing. Amelia felt a mix of anger and empathy, but it was time to stop making others comfortable at the cost of her own peace. I've had to rebuild without you. Your absence made me stronger in ways you'll never understand. But that doesn't mean I'm still not hurt. The truth rolled off her tongue, far clearer than it had ever been in the past. For a moment, Sarah stood motionless, absorbing Amelia's words. The pause felt like a lifetime as Amelia unveiled her power. Are you going to apologize? Amelia pushed, or are you here to try and justify your actions? Sarah's voice faltered again, but something shifted in her demeanor. It was as if the years of distance had finally sparked some self-realization. I know you're trying to say something important, but here's the reality. I found my strength without you, and it's not about dragging the past into the present any longer. The edge in Amelia's voice was a testament to her growth, an assertion of her hard-earned independence. With that realization, the weight of their shared history felt lighter. She had navigated storms unseen, emerged from shadows darker than those looming over the crowd, and now stood defiantly within her own light, but just as she was finding her footing, she felt Evan's presence hover at the periphery, a reminder that she was never truly alone. With each passing moment, an even deeper conflict emerged. How would her confrontation with Sarah shape her relationship with Evan? Would he be able to see this moment of strength as a sign of her readiness to truly embrace love and vulnerability, or would it push him away? The uncertainty gnawed at her resolve, coaxing old fears back to the surface. And as Amelia tried to hold the space she declaimed, she caught a glimpse of Evan's face, expectant, yet shadowed by doubt. Would this moment of truth propel her into the future she longed for, or fracture the newly forged bond with Evan? She stood at yet another crossroads, ready to take the next step toward empowerment, whatever it might reveal. Amelia took a breath, grounding herself in the weight of the moment. The crowd swirled around them, a cacophony of laughter and chatter, while she stood locked in confrontation with a ghost from her past. Sarah's eyes hovered between remorse and realization, and she could almost see the gears turning in the other woman's mind. This was a chance to redefine their relationship, and Amelia's heart raced with a mixture of anger and liberation. Listen, Amelia began, fiercely determined to seize her narrative. I don't need reparations or an explanation. What matters is where I go from here. You've come back, but not to fix things. You're here for your own reasons. The clarity of her words surprised even her, each syllable fueled by an ounce of the self-worth she had finally started to embrace. Sarah flinched but didn't back down. You're right. I wanted to explain myself, but I see now that I've disrupted something you've worked hard to build. The admission was the first step toward accountability, yet Amelia wasn't willing to let complacency settle in. I acknowledge the changes you might have gone through, but that doesn't give you the right to re-enter my life without considering the impact it may have. A small green light flickered in Sarah's eyes, and for the first time, Amelia sensed vulnerability beyond the walls of their past. But vulnerability alone wasn't enough, it required actions, not just words. Amelia's gaze darted to Evan, who stood quietly, the uncertainty palpable on his face, contrasting sharply with the determined stance she was trying to exude. What do you want? Sarah's voice trembled, pulling Amelia back to the moment. You need to understand one fundamental truth, Amelia said, her voice rising confidently above the noise. Betraying my trust doesn't grant you easy access to my life again. I've fought battles to find my confidence, and I won't hand it over because you've decided to show remorse. Evan's eyes shone with pride, a familiar warmth coursing through her as she planted her feet firmly on the ground. She wasn't solely an echo of the hurt little girl anymore, she was a woman who commanded her narrative with precision. The flicker of insecurity that had once ruled her thoughts was fading, replaced by fierce resolution. As she continued speaking, a realization bloomed within Amelia. This confrontation wasn't just about Sarah, it was about reclaiming her power. While you've done the work to reflect on our past, your next steps should involve living authentically without me. It's evident I've become a stronger person from our shared experiences. I can't afford to let your past mistakes cloud my future opportunities for growth. After a seemingly interminable silence, Sarah lowered her eyes. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. Amelia nodded curtly, the embrace of silence almost comforting. She didn't have to respond to every overture, instead, she could choose her path, leaving the door open for future closure or an amicable distance. As Sarah stepped back, the tension around Amelia began to dissolve. She turned to face Evan fully, to gauge his response. He stepped closer, the concern in his eyes replaced by admiration. You were incredible, he said softly, and she felt a rush of warmth at his words. Yet, beneath that warmth lingered a gnawing doubt. Had this experience fragmented her ability to open up entirely to him? Would he interpret her newfound strength as a wall rather than a bridge? Before she could voice her uncertainty, Evan spoke again. Are you okay? Really? Amelia searched her feelings, battling against old habits that screamed for vulnerability but also yearning to reveal the depth of her growth. I am, she replied, the sincerity palpable in her voice. It's just I have more to figure out, especially with us. I've confronted old wounds, but it doesn't change the fact that I need to understand what I want moving forward. The words hung like confetti in the air, bright and chaotic. Amelia had opened a Pandora's box within herself, teasing out emotions she had long buried. As Evan's features softened and he reached for her hand, Amelia felt both electric excitement and the lingering specter of fear. Would their connection withstand the truths she had unearthed? Could she find a balance between vulnerability and the strength she had fought so hard to build? The questions loomed large, pushing her toward an unsettling yet exhilarating future. Amelia swallowed hard, aware she was standing on the precipice of a new beginning. With her heart pounding in her chest, she whispered, I think the real challenge awaits. How do I let love in without losing myself? As they prepared to leave, an unexpected voice cut through the atmosphere, an invitation crackling with unanticipated tension. So, did I miss the emotional reunion? A familiar figure emerged from the crowd. The surprise made her heart skip a beat, facing another layer of her past. Amelia's breath hitched as the voice echoed through the air, each word laden with implications and memories. Glancing up, she saw Jason's familiar silhouette, his confident stance and charmingly disarming smile a stark reminder of a different chapter she had long since tried to close. The casual tone with which he addressed her felt like a challenge to the composed armor she'd spent so long crafting around herself. What are you doing here, Jason? She managed, her voice firmer than she felt. The surprise of his arrival wasn't just unsettling, it threatened to unravel the clarity she'd discovered moments ago. I was just stopping by to see old friends, he replied casually, though his eyes sparkled with a playfulness that was impossible to ignore. Seems like I stumbled into a soap opera. Tell me, are you casting for a new role? Because I must say, the drama looks intense. Jason needed no invitation to shift to center stage. He thrived in attention, basking in its glow while Amelia felt it press down upon her like a heavy cloak. As Sarah slipped away, the energy shifted, pulling Amelia back into an interaction she thought she could navigate with maturity. She could feel Evan's presence at her side, strong yet uncertain, as if he too awaited her direction. I didn't realize this was a reunion of sorts, Amelia shot back, her defenses rising instinctively. She needed to reclaim the narrative, yet a part of her hesitated as memories of laughter, adventure, and an exhilarating connection flooded back, moments that reminded her how easily she had once slipped into his orbit. Jason took a step closer, a mischievous grin lighting up his face. You can't rid yourself of the past that easily, can you? Not when there are still so many interesting plots left unwritten between us. She swallowed hard, every one of his words striking a chord within her. Was this a moment calling for confrontation or reflection? The remnants of her insecurities twisted alongside the resolve she had just found. Amelia felt a tension deep in her core, the fight against the pull of nostalgia against the thrill of the present. "Jason, I've moved on. I've worked hard to build a life for myself," Amelia replied, her voice steadier than her insides felt. Yet, even as she fought against his charm, a small part of her found his presence intoxicating. The line had blurred between past and present, and she wrestled with understanding how much had really changed within her. "Of course, you have," he acknowledged, something more sincere flickering in his eyes. "But what's wrong with revisiting a chapter of your life? Maybe it's time for your next plot twist." Amelia took a step back, pulling away slightly as her mind raced. Here was this man, who had once brought thrilling chaos into her already turbulent emotions. Was she supposed to welcome that back? Deep down, she knew she wouldn't be the same girl he had once known. Still, the echoes of her past felt suffocating, every word, every smile exchanged reminding her of vulnerabilities she had been learning to navigate without fear. Before she could fully process the shifting dynamics, Evan broke the silence. "What do you mean by a new plot twist?" His voice was calm but contained a challenging edge that caught Amelia slightly off guard, forcing Jason back into the role of mere acquaintance rather than an old flame. "Just that sometimes you find stories worth revisiting," Jason responded smoothly, the charm returning as he turned to Evan. "Maybe you should consider that, man. Sometimes history holds the key to the future." With those words, the ground beneath Amelia felt unstable, and she was teetering on the brink. The fear of being drawn back into that exploration of her past pushed against the exhilarating feelings she held for Evan, yet Jason's bravado felt like both an echo and a test. Amelia stared at Evan, searching for his reaction, realizing this confrontation spiraled beyond mere nostalgia. It demanded choices about who she was willing to become. Would past mistakes define her path, or would she stand firm in the strength she had cultivated? Somewhere in the depths of her mind, Amelia understood that to truly embrace her future, she had to face the specter of her past once more. As Jason's presence loomed like a shadow, illuminating unforgotten feelings, she sensed the next challenge rising on the horizon, the need to disentangle her past from her present. "Maybe it's time I remind everyone how I've redefined my story," she whispered to herself, the resolve settling over her like a protective barrier. What would she ultimately choose? As tension clawed at the air, awaiting her answer, she realized there was one more defining moment she had yet to confront. Before she could say the words forming on her lips, Jason leaned in closer, a playful smirk on his face, and with unexpected confidence declared, "Let us set the record straight, shall we?" The room spun with the thrill of her decision, leaving Amelia questioning if she was prepared for the unfolding drama of her own making. Would she embrace the flames of her past, or let them fuse into a new beginning? Amelia felt the weight of Jason's gaze pinning her in place, his presence, a whirlwind of old emotions colliding with the hard-won clarity she believed she had. Even as she stood firmly, every instinct screamed against the new layer of vulnerability she found herself wearing. "Set the record straight," she echoed internally. But how could she, when the very definition of her story was caught in the balance? Her heart quickened, not in fear, but in a realization that dawned brighter than before. The past could not hold power over her if she didn't allow it. Yet, standing before Jason, the man who once shared her laughter and dreams, the line between her newfound self and the girl from those memories became hauntingly blurred. What if she confronted him directly? She inhaled deeply, the air thick and tinged with the uncertainty rolling through her. Jason might be charming, but beneath that facade lay the magic of her self-deception, the belief that she had moved beyond his grip on her life and emotions. "Jason," she said, grounding herself with the sound of her own voice. "You think revisiting old chapters means there's still a story worth rewriting between us, but that's just it. I'm not the same girl anymore, and I don't want to go back there." Evan moved slightly closer, the heat of his body fueling her courage. He was a steadfast reminder of the path she had fought hard to carve for herself, a sensible choice wrapped in the sweetness of new beginnings. Amelia turned to him, searching for solidarity in his expression. She saw support, and that emboldened her. Forget the plots you think are left unwritten. Let me remind you of the lessons I learned from the last chapter. The conviction in her voice felt tangible, it resonated even with the chaos around them. It was freeing but terrifying. Jason blinked, the playfulness momentarily flickering as a hint of seriousness landed amidst his surface charm. There was a glimmer of challenge lurking in his eyes, a silent acknowledgement of the stakes rising like a tide between them. Isn't that what life is about, Amelia? Learning, evolving. Jason stepped back slightly, a vulnerability in the shift. But maybe you don't realize just how compelling that old story was, how it defines you even now. The allure of his words danced dangerously close to temptation. It was a classic play, the appeal of the familiar, sandwiched between mischief and melancholy, echoing within her. Why did she still feel this pull toward the chaos he embodied? Was she somehow drawn to the very tension that sent her running in the first place? I've faced my past, she asserted, praying the weight of it settled correctly on her shoulders. I fought through it, grew from it, and ultimately reshaped it into my narrative. Aspen trees swayed in the breeze outside the window, offering her a metaphor, the revision she could choose. That's all well and good, Jason retorted, his eyes narrowing as if peering through a window into her soul. But what if you're just afraid to truly let someone else in, to rewrite your story with a new cast? His words landed with a deep thud, ricocheting in her mind. Was this fear what buried itself in her heart, festering as thoughts spiraled into doubt? Her connection with Evan felt genuine, but was it also her only safe haven? Was she allowing Jason's re-emergence to shadow what could be, diverting her from the potential blossoming before her eyes? A mix of indignation and introspection swelled within her. You're not wrong, but let me show you something, Jason, she challenged. My life has been rewritten much closer to the page where I hold the pen, not just as a character in your script. As the words hung in the air, Amelia scanned the room, each gaze of onlookers present now bore witness to her declaration. It was time to unmask herself fully, to shed the weight of both past and present. Where do you see yourself in this story, Amelia? Jason asked, the challenge still sparking without losing warmth. Right where I need to be, rewriting my destiny without the distractions you represent, she said, feeling the suffocation of his influence deflating under the power of her voice. His lips twisted into a half-smile, half-sneer, as an amused spark ignited. Then let us see which way this plot twist goes. The invitation settled in heavy silence as the unacknowledged tension surged, each second felt like a countdown to an explosion of revelation. Was she truly ready to stand her ground against both Jason and the ghosts of her past? Would she embrace this new clarity, taking ownership of her choices, or risk falling back into what was so comfortable but toxic? An unsettling anticipation hung in the air, leaving her breathless with the urgency of her next move. The moment stretched before her, a canvas yet untouched, waiting for her first stroke. Let us make it count, she whispered to herself, unsure of how this confrontation would shape her truth ahead. Would the next turn of her story lead her to the clarity she craved, or would it pull her into a tempest she thought she had escaped? Amelia stood at a significant crossroads, her tumultuous past and vibrant present colliding with a fervor she hadn't anticipated. There was Jason, a specter of her former self, lingering like a shadow, while Evan awaited her next words, embodying the promise of her future. The tension crackled in the air as uncertainty wrapped around her, reminding her of the weight that legacy carried. But resolute within was a fierce determination, a desire to shed the fears that once enveloped her choices. Here's the reality, Jason, Amelia asserted, each word sharpened by newfound confidence. I've journeyed through depths you couldn't fathom. I don't intend to let nostalgia redefine who I am or who I'm becoming. Every syllable felt like a piece of armor, fortifying her against the temptation to retreat. She glanced at Evan, who stood encouragingly at her side, a silent beacon of support. His presence reinforced her resolve, reminding her that she wasn't merely confronting her past, she was reclaiming her narrative. Jason faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. The bravado that had exuded so easily began to crack, revealing a glimpse of the boy she had once cherished but had ultimately discarded. It's easier to smile and recollect times of joy than face the hard truths. You're right. You've changed. His charm faltered, grounding the moment in serious reflection. But what if those memories are still worth something? What if they're part of your evolving story? Amelia felt the stirrings of conflict within, yet she remained anchored. It's worth trembling at the cloth of the past, but that doesn't mean I'm bound to it. I've rewritten my history through lessons learned, emerging stronger, with a voice of my own. With every utterance, her strength radiated a conviction forged through trials faced alone. Are you sure, though? Jason pressed, hoping to dislodge her newfound determination. True growth comes with vulnerability. What if cutting ties means cutting yourself off from parts that could enrich you? She inhaled deeply, discerning clarity amidst the noise surrounding her. Enriching moments should not carry the baggage of dysfunction. Vulnerability isn't about dissolution, it's about choice. I choose to extend my narrative with those who uplift, not those who anchor me to things I've outgrown. Evan, sensing her courage, stepped closer, his unwavering presence providing warmth that reignited her flame. He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, a grounding force anchoring her at this critical juncture. She turned to him, ready to seal the burgeoning connection while slicing through the anticipatory haze. Amelia, Evan said, his voice steady and sincere, the invitation you extended to me matters deeply. I want to be part of this story, to explore it with you, wherever it leads. It's in your words and dreams that I see potential and partnership. His faith in her ignited a resonance she hadn't anticipated, a restful certainty that drew her closer to him. With Jason still focused on the unfolding scene, the words hung heavy in the air. And what do we do now? He queried, the challenge diffused but still lingering. But, irrespective of the past's gravitational pull, Amelia knew she had not just rewritten her story, she had charted new territory, a space fueled by honesty, exploration, and acceptance. This is where I take ownership of my narrative, Amelia declared, her voice unwavering. Jason, I'm grateful for the lessons, but know this: no matter how vivid my past was, my story is not bound by it. I have powerful characters beside me now. She felt her heart swell with pride and excitement, punctuated by the vitality of the moment. At that instant, the weight of burdens lightened, replaced by the invigorating thrill of possibilities. Turning back to Evan, she smiled, no longer afraid of the connection burgeoning between them. I'm ready to rewrite this story, together. As dawn painted the horizon, a lightness enveloped Amelia's chest. She had taken on what she feared most, she had confronted herself, claiming agency over her life. The journey alongside Evan seemed clearer now, the fog fading to unveil a path laced with hope, creativity, and shared vulnerability. Her heart beat steadily in rhythm with newfound confidence, and she savored the sensation of embarking on an adventure aligned with her dreams. Evan's squeeze of her hand reaffirmed that their fates entwined, and together they would forge a tale marked by authenticity and depth. She glanced back at Jason, who appeared a mere figment of nostalgia, and yet gracefully, she recognized that some chapters concluded to allow for new beginnings. Now was Amelia's moment. The story belonged to her, and she possessed the power to drive it forward. With renewed determination, she took Evan's hand, stepped into the brightening day, and embraced the unknown. The world awaited, rich with stories yet to unfold, and she was resolute. Amelia had emerged victorious, conquering not just old fears but crafting an extraordinary chapter of her existence, one defined by courage, love, and the promise of possibility. This is the moment for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, showing your support for these journeys of personal overcoming. Comment with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us uplift those seeking transformation together.